Hi guys, and welcome back to another YouTube video. In this video we'll be doing the mid prices madness defenders edition, going through all the mid prices and who you should be really looking at. This will probably go up to, I reckon, somewhere, I could do 300k as like the boundary, but I reckon it'll be somewhere probably around that 320, 330 is almost rookie price, because you do have a couple of low hanging fruit type of guys that are there. I think in the more so the forward line, I believe, is around that rookie price that could go above that 300. I do like to have slightly different boundaries to what other people have. So anyway, before we get into this video, remember to like and subscribe, turn the notification bell on so you know when I upload, and let's get into this video. So first off, the rank is probably Will Powell. I don't necessarily think he is a premium at the moment, but I think he could push into that premium status. But I think it's going to be Budrick is the one that's going to get that real good use in that defensive half for the Damien Hardwick Gold Coast Suns. And I think Will Powell will probably have about 5 or 6 points of upside, but alongside his early buy, I don't think he is really that much of a player to go to. McGrath's burnt me too many times to say anyway, and at 82, I don't really see there being much upside. I had him at 720k last year, and he's now starting at 738k or whatever, so not much upside. Heppel's way too old to be any upside, and I think guys like was it Archie Roberts, Lawal as well, have been drafted to take over this sort of Heppel and even McGrath to a sense. And also you have Martin in there in the backline anyway now, training there, so he will probably play. Nick Martin, I should say, is probably going to play down there anyway, which will mean that Heppel is probably not going to play in at all, or get limited game time in a sense anyway. Brady Smith, he's 32, getting on, and 81, I don't really see any upside there. Lockie Weller, another interesting one, only 9 games for an 83, priced at what's that, basically an 81 or so, I believe. So so I don't think he will go up too much. 83.8 times 0.97, price at 81.2. With the early buy, he's going to have to clear that by 2.5 or so points, which would be right back at this 83.8. And then he's going to have upside itself, so he's probably going to go 95 to be a pick, and I just don't see that, to be honest with him. I mean, he was going, I believe, low 90s before an injury, but he had a 67 and then came back and did 60s, so I'm not too interested in him at all. He only had 2 100 scores and 190 and an 88, so I don't think there's much value there, to be honest with you. So there's that with Lockie Weller. Vlosten, early buy, no thank you. We haven't really seen any improvement out of him. Noble, same thing. I don't think there will be much improvement. 23 games, got dropped in the finals anyway, and I just don't see there being much upside for Noble at the moment, and his place in the side is a little bit unknown, to be honest with you. It's not, if we look at Noble, I think he only played the 23 games. Did he get dropped in finals? He got dropped right before, in the last round. He played the last round, then got dropped. But as you can see, he was having not the best season anyway. After starting the season quite on fire, round 1, round 2, round 3, this is probably going to average out to like 90, isn't it? 85 in 7 games, and you even extend that out to their 88 in the first 10 games, and then dropped off in the last little bit to only average 81. Blake Hardwick, I believe that there was thoughts about him going into the forward line, and I don't think there's any value there, even though he doesn't have the early buy. Priced at 81 as a small forward, I don't think you will get anything there. Could be maybe handy in the forward line, given how destroyed the forward line is, if he gets forward status and then goes back into the back line. But yeah, other than that, I don't think there's any value there. Ridley, 17 games, 81. This is an interesting one, and probably the first one we should actually take any note of. And this would be a hunch-based thing, and it would be based on his preseason score and the role that he has. Just because with Mackay out, Ridley could jump, and we've seen sort of him go 79 before and then 80. So we've seen him do it now for 2 years. Sort of be around that, 71 now to 71 in COVID was the equivalent of like an 85, I want to say 71.8 8 times 1.25 is an 89. So we kind of need that, probably a little bit more than that upwards. We probably need 15 points of upside from him at 80.8. So you probably got to see him go up to that 95 or so range, which he could do, but I don't know if he'll necessarily do that. So that's why I'd probably say wait and watch his preseason, and if he goes 120 or something like that, 130 in the preseason game, has a really good role, then you could look. But also you've got to factor in that Nick Martin's down back there anyway, so he may be forced to take a more defensive role anyway, and Nick Martin take up that sort of distribution role that is there potentially. And Jordan Ridley could just do like a Nick Blakey yet again and be that third tall that sort of averages that 70 or 80 or so again. Next up, Jarman Impey, 22 games, 81. With the backline now having potentially Amon as well as Weddle and still playing a major role. Hardwick leaving there as well. Impey might be pushed onto a potential wing. And yeah, I just don't like this Impey as well, just because you got Connor McDonald on a wing as well. So I just don't know if... I think he definitely will play, in my opinion, but I just don't know how... if he will have actually a positive impact. I don't think he will increase his scoring, and there's a massive chance that he just regresses to like a 75 or something like that, and you can't have that as a starting pick, as a mid-pricer. Rioli has shown flashes, but did get injured, so he does have an injury game in there, Rioli. Rioli, if we just do... How do you spell it? Daniel Rioli, I think this is it. And then we go through here. And you see 80, 78 when he moved into the back line after that forward line a little bit. So I could see him improving it up to 90 or so, given that it's his third season in the back line, but also does have a couple of injury games to worry about, which even not actually injury games, doesn't look like. Just this week game where he played half forward in the last round, which was weird, and then I'm pretty sure this one there was definitely an injury game in there where he actually played on, but he didn't really have much of an impact at all. So even though it doesn't say that there's an injury game, I knew that he did get injured early in one of them and tried to play through it and just didn't. So there's that. But he has shown glimpses of scoring potential with this. 88, 114, 102, 88, 4-week stretch, a month stretch of 98 average. And then going back, you can even just count all these ones in, and then you start to get a bigger picture. From round 1 to round 11, he averaged 93, which is plus 13. So can he get back to that form? We'll see under the new coach, but I have a feeling it will be Jaden... is it a new coach? Pretty sure it's a new coach. I'm pretty sure he'll be 85 to 90 guy, and I just don't think there's value when you've got Hayden Young, just a little bit more expensive, that has a lot more potential, and then you can just go almost guns and rookies, or guns in really lower priced mid prices. Ed Richards, been seen in the midfield, but that's just because it's an intra-squad game, and they need like 8, 9, 10 midfielders, so he's just played there. Especially with McRae, with the hamstring soreness or whatever, so he was just, that was a precaution, I'm led to believe, and it wasn't as bad as what other people are saying. So McRae should be back very, very soon. And so Ed Richards was just in the midfield to fill the hole. Witherden, 78. I don't see there being much upside, to be honest, with him. I think Harley Reid just comes in and takes all of Shannon Turn's points pretty much at this point. Salem, I'm pretty sure, has had an interrupted preseason anyway, so I would not be picking him, alongside the fact that he's got the early buy in itself. So that rounds out the 700Kers. Then we get to the more interesting, I believe, 600K range. Jaden Hunt, 692, 77, last 3 of 68, doesn't really matter, to be honest. And he could improve, but I don't think he necessarily will, as there's no real role change, and he's 28 anyway, so I don't think there will be massive improvement on his 77. Jordan Clark's definitely an interesting one, with Hayden Young moving out of the back line. He's been training really, really well at the moment. So will be interesting is 76.5, whether that could that go to 95? We'll have to wait and see, but it could actually legitimately go there. Whether he takes some off of Luke Ryan or something like that could be interesting, but I definitely think Jordan Clark is one to look at, but probably with there being Heath Chapman, Brayshaw, Sarong, and Young, all with mostly better prospects, I would expect many not to look at Jordan Clark just because it's a little bit more of a reach. Rivers, another one that has been spoken about a little bit. 76.5, I don't see it being that much of a play, given he's got the opening round game in itself, meaning he has to cover the line by another 2.5 in itself, and it's sort of almost relying on these guys that are about 2 weeks behind or so in training, and they're doing like running, to not get on the park by round 1. And it's just fraught with a lot of danger of a guy just coming back and ruining his role and ruining his cash gen, and that's probably why I wouldn't go with Trent Rivers anyway. He has been training well, but I don't think he will be anywhere close to a lot of people's sides because of the fact that one game could ruin him, and his role is sort of on edge of injury players. Dustin McPherson, no thank you. Burnt me. He has 2 games a year at Darwin or whatever, and he gets burnt for a 40 in each one of those anyway. And outside of that, he started the season off really well, but then just plummeted after Darwin, basically. Hinge, another interesting one, like Laverde pretty much, has shown flashes of being able to do it, but we haven't seen it on a regular sort of scale. If we just go over to Hinge, spelled that wrong, Hinge here, and get rid of that as well, then you'll see he's gone from 54, a 30 in one game where he was injured 1 year, to a 60.8 last year and a 75.5. He could easily take his game up to an 85 or so, but I don't think there'll be much more further progress, as I think the large share of the points the points increase that I see for the Adelaide side is definitely in their midfield forwards, as well as a little bit of improvement on their on ballers. So I don't really see there being much of an improvement potential or market share sort of for their defenders as much. So I really don't like Hinge as much as others. But again, if he comes out and puts a 120, 130 in the back line in preseason, then that could sway me just a little bit. But at the moment, I think Hinge, he's only got 200s and 120, and does have an injury game in there as well, 2 injury games. So actually now that I've just seen there's been 2 injury games, that could be interesting on his average if you take out those injury games. Let's just check it, because if he's like, it would have to be probably an 82 or 83 for me to actually think about these. He's still averaging 80.3 with the injury games excluded. So even with that, I don't think it's too much of a... And also this injury game here, he had 86% time on ground, so he really didn't actually have too much of an injury. So it's only a 78.8 for him. Like you can even see here, he in that injured game played more time on ground than some of the games that he's actually been non-injured. So I don't necessarily like Hinge as much as some other people have at the moment. Luke McDonald, you can give that a miss. It will be McKercher, as well as I forgot who else is off that half-back flank with Fisher out injured. I don't think they'll return to Sheasel as well down there. I think Sheasel's training pretty much the whole season as a mid-forward. So Luke McDonald, I don't really expect to have much influence. Rory Atkins, I don't even know if he gets into the side, to be honest. Will be interesting, and I think if he does get into the side, he may just play a wing role. So I'm not too interested in that if he does do that. Maynard, early buy, hasn't really had a role change, don't really like that. Same with Sard, to be honest with you, has shown flashes in the last 3 that he can do it, but sort of levels out over the last 5, and that's sort of what Sard has been for the last couple of years now. If we go to Adam Sard here, you'll see that he sort of always goes 74, 81, 74, 82, 69, 66, 68. You can sort of see it's consistently between sort of 50, 58 or so, and also sort of the 70s. Only last couple of seasons he's actually kicked on a little bit, and that's just because of a slight increase in kicks, and a slight increase in marks, which has gotten him up another 10 or so points in the last couple of years. But anyway, not too interested in Saad. Johannesson, does he even make the back line, or is he going to be back to a wing role or a forward role? That would be interesting. Harry Himmelberg, a little bit of value early before they announced the round 0, but not enough value now to pick him just because of that early buy. And he's only about 10 points upside or 15 points upside in a defender role. Nick Blakey, early buy, no real change in his role, don't like it. Wayne Miller, I believe, is already injured. Ollie Florent, early buy, no change in his role, so don't like it. Mitch McGovern can barely get onto the park consistently enough. Corey Wagner, 9 games, 73, I think just well overpriced at this point, to be honest with you. Harry Perryman, I think his role is just gone, and I don't really value him too much. Stocker was interesting for a 71, but sort of popped up in a month or so of footy, and then outside of that didn't do anything. Kemp's been really played out of position as a key defender almost, and just really inflated his stats through a couple of weeks where they just played kickball around the back to Carlton, so he had, I think, a couple of tons. If we actually go to Kemp, there was almost a point where I considered bringing him in until I realised what his role was, and then I realised he was like a second or third, he was a third tall, I believe, and I didn't like his role necessarily as much. You can sort of see he went 107, then went 46, then returned to the VFL and went 92, and came back into the AFL, went 73, 79, 52, 87, 86. So he went 75 across the 5-game span. Had a couple of injury games, but they're not really, to be honest, injury games. As much so as someone who's played like 10%, so you can't really discount there at all. Zach Guthrie could be interesting, but I think that with Tom Stewart getting another tall mate in Connor O'Sullivan to replace Radaglia, that's the distribution will still be on Tom Stewart and not on Zach Guthrie, so I don't like the look of that. Elliot Yeo, way too injured, to be honest, at the moment to think about selecting him. But we'll see in round 0, to be honest, if he does, not round 0, if pre-season he goes and scores like 120 or something like that and looks good in the midfield, maybe we discount our midfield a little bit and chuck him in there at sort of that D3 range, because if he has a good month of footy, he could easily get up to a premium there and help us get towards that Nick Dacos, who will probably, I'm suspecting, be 1.01, I would suspect Nick Dacos to be, because I wasn't factoring this in, but generally the magic number drops by a good 200 or so, 300 across the first couple of weeks as well, which means that their break-evens almost jump up in itself. So Nick Dacos could jump down to 950k, I still think, as a rough sort of, if McGuinness gets him and stuff like that. But I suspect he'll sit at around 1 to 1.01 mil after his bye round, and that's sort of the range that we're looking for Elliot Yeo to get upgraded to him. And he would probably, you'd need a good 200k off a rookie to probably get up to, from Elliot Yeo up to the Nick Dacos. Brendan Cox, I think he's just going to be sort of there and thereabouts, with Heath Chapman more playing a more distributing role. And then who else was there? I think there was someone else from Freo that was also more distributing role in the sort of back. You got Jeremy Sharp, Heath Chapman, and Luke Ryan sort of there. So maybe Brendan Cox gets released by a little bit, but I wouldn't be looking at him terribly much. Liam Baker, even though he's got the early bye, he's been used somewhat as a utility man, but it seems like he's going to be played in the midfield role. And with the forwards, he's a forward, so we'll talk about him obviously in the forwards more so section, because that is where he's sort of more up the rankings a little bit. Anyone else that I've sort of talked about in the wrong section doesn't really look like it. They're all defenders. Kitty Coleman, another interesting one, and if he sort of goes that 121, 130 in round 0, I reckon there is a part of me that will just go for him, because he'll be instant cash in even with the early buy. It just means someone like Dan Curtin needs to cover him for that early buy, as he could easily jump up very quickly. 69 average last year, could go 90. So there is possible upside there. We just need to see that round 0 score and sort of role that he gets. as I don't think there'll be too much of a role improvement, but I do think his play and his points per minute could just skyrocket just generally. Stephen May, early buy, and he's getting older. I don't think there's been a massive role change. Nick Hind, also don't really think there's been a role change. Well, it's probably been a negative role change, if anything, with Nick Martin coming back into the defence. Harris Andrews, key defender, no thank you. Isaac Quaynor never really had that distributing role down back for the Pies. It's either Noble, Dacos, or Scott Pendlebury if he goes back there anyway, so I'm not looking at him. Cummings' role is sort of gone to nothingness in the sort of 60 range, so I'm not looking at him either. McGovern, no, he's just not on the park. Laverde, another interesting one, but I think he'll be that, second tall, so I'm not looking at him either. Chase Jones, winger, no thank you, as a defender anyway. Connor Odin, not really looking at him, needs to have that massive increase as a round 0 player in that early buy, and don't really see a role change for him. Neither do I see Nathan Broad with a role change. Jermaine Jones, no role change that I can see. And Scrimshaw and Haynes. Haynes has probably had a massive negative role change anyway, as it looks like he's sort of getting floated out of the side. Scrimshaw, I don't see there being a positive role change at the moment, but one that I'll definitely look into slightly more, as I don't really know the Hawks as much. Then we go down to the 500k range, and this is where it starts to get, I think, a little bit interesting, but it may be the 400k's that get really interesting. Cole, 595, no thank you. Brandon Campbell, probably next year is when he gets that breakout as the Lloyd replacement. And he also has the round 0. McKenna, round 0, no thank you. Bolter, no role change. Kane Farrell, 65, nothing there. Weddle could jump. Weddle will improve, but he won't improve enough to probably be a guy that we can select. But I do like the way he plays the game with that running dash off half back, and he might get a wing role. But we'll wait and see on that one. But definitely just probably a draft only type of guy. Ryan Burton, no. 20 games, 64, nothing there. Darcy Moore, key defender. Lester, no thank you. Jimmy Webster, no thank you. 16 games, 63. Then we come down to Windhager at 570k. And this is one that could go. We just saw recent reports that, is it Paddy Dow is injured. So he will be underdone in training, to be honest with you, if he does play round 0. But if he doesn't play round 0, that should hopefully open up the scoring for Windhager, because Windhager just needs to get on the field. It's as simple as that. 18 games, 63. We'll also look at Windhager as well here. Where is he? There we go. Marcus Windhager. And you'll see that generally the scores are a lot. If we actually look at him here, you can see this patch in the VFL where he went 116 in the VFL, and you see here he sort of had this weird role in round 23 in round 25 against GWS in the in the final series, where he had a 47, which was not a good role at all. But you can sort of see this patch here when he wasn't wearing the vest in 2023. If we actually look at it, when he wasn't wearing the vest, he went 72. He's priced at what's he priced at? He's priced at 63 anyway, so that is 9 points of upside. There is a general better role, I think, for him anyway, and there was a couple of stinkers in here. This role before he got down back, if you actually look at it, I think this was when he started to go down back a little bit more and get into a better role. He averaged 77. That's 14 points of upside. There is definitely a world in which I do go Windhager down back to start, but that's probably if I don't like Heath Chapman and I don't like Connor Broderick when we get to those guys. But yes, Windhager is definitely one to wait and see what happens with his role come the naming of teams for round 1. Jeremy Howe, just getting older. Seamus Mitchell doesn't look like he has much of a role in the side, to be honest with you. 63 from 14 games, no discount there, don't like it. Giath, CJ, don't really think his role is... I think he's getting is he getting a wing role? The wings at Hawthorn, there's about 6 guys rolling through there, I swear, at the moment. With potentially McDonald, Impey, Amon, Giath, as well as I think Ward has done a little bit of work on the side there as well. So that's already 5 guys that are potentially wings. Bowie, I don't expect him to do much, to be honest with you, to improve. No role change there. Bramble, 62. I don't expect there to do much there, to be honest with you. Battle, no thank you. O'Connor is just a tagger. Hoff could be interesting at 62. I wish he was another 60k cheaper, because if he was the same price as Heath Chapman, I think he would have a higher ownership, because there is potential for him to snag some of the Hearn points, but I think they will mostly, as I said earlier in the video, go mostly to the Harley Reid down back as he eases into footy. So that's why Hoff is a little bit off my radar a little bit. Do they have on DFS, do they have his second scores? If they do, that would be a lot handy, but they don't at the moment. But you can see that was a weird game where he had 85% time on ground for a 19. That was really weird. But if you don't regard that first game, because it was a weird game, against Melbourne where he put up a 19, I don't think he'll put up a 19 ever again, to be honest with you. If you disregard that score, which is a little bit tedious to do that, he is 64 for the year, and then you can see that there's potential there with a couple of tons there. You can see a 111 and a 105 against Adelaide and Brisbane, which were good scoring teams in itself, but I mean that could just be because they were getting slapped up that he just got a lot of the ball down there. And if he does get onto kickouts, that will be interesting, but we'll have to wait and see on that one. I believe he was taking kickouts in the match sims or the training in previous weeks. Wilmot is wing roll / halfback roll, so I don't expect him to have that much of a say. Jack Bowes, I believe he's had a lot of sub games. I believe he might have even had a sub-0, I want to say, on his thing this year. So if you look at him in non-sub games, if we actually look at his scoring, that was a sub game in itself. That was an injured game. I'm not going to count that injured game, to be honest with you. In non-sub games, he's got an average of 72, and he's currently priced at around 61. So he's got 60.7, so he has 11.5 points. 11.5 points of upside. So there is points of upside for Bowes. He just needs to get on the park. And with Geelong being what I expect to be a worse side, if him off halfback, he could be that distributor that Guthrie has been in the past, but priced at 60. He really needs to go 85 or so to actually be valuable. So I don't think he's going to be a pick this year. Williams, Bergman has a good start, but not really. Don't think there'll be much improvement there. Rampy is a third tall, and he's getting older. No thank you. Worrell, no thank you. Really, 12 games, 51. Kelly, 17 games, 59. Don't think so. Aiden Core is more used as a tall, I believe. So no thank you there. Ballard, don't think he gets that sort of distributing role, so I don't think there's anything there for him. Buckley is a key. Lewis Young, what is he? A key, I believe. Trezise is just well overpriced, to be honest, for the output that he's going to put up. He probably will put up 77, but the problem is that he's only going to be priced at, I believe, 58 or so. 77 times 0.73. He's going to be priced at 56. So there's 20 points of upside if you look at his 77. And if we look at Trezise, in the DFS anyway, Trezise, I believe it didn't look it up for some reason. Here we go. If you look at Trezise now, you'll see his VFL games. I believe his average is going to probably turn up in the 70s as well. If we quickly just search that all up here, you'll see his average is 76 in the VFL. So whether he can actually fully turn that into AFL with 76 will be interesting, but I don't think he will. It could be a struggle for him to get 76 in the AFL anyway. Then you have Sam Taylor, key defender, great player, but just not fantasy relevant. Connor Budrick, 2 games, 74, and this guy is one that we're definitely looking at a little bit more, to be honest, than a Trezise. Budrick, if we go here, just because I believe his VFL stats are a lot more enticing, to be honest with you. If we do look at the VFL here, over the last couple of years, has had a couple of injuries, 7 games, 78. But if we look at his AFL form, in the AFL, he's gone 73 before and 65 on a longer 9-game season. So we look at that as well. And if we actually take this out and look at his 2022, you'll see he did get injured 54%. I'm not really going to count that. And then you go here, you go here, you go here, and you go here, and I'll count the 79. He's gone 68 in the AFL before, so that's more of a form indication, as well as the fact that he looks like he'll be the main ball handler. So we'll be dependent on his score and he's gone 83 and 64 before anyway in the AFL last year. So we'll be dependent on his score in round 0, but I definitely think he is valuable for everyone to look at if you want him over Heath Chapman. Though D, key defender, is out with an injury anyway. 499, Harry Cunningham is just a lockdown defender. Heath Chapman could get that better role, which we're looking at, and is priced at like 55 or whatever, so there is potentially 20 points of upside. But if Buderick gets a good score, I'd be more happy to go with Buderick over Heath Chapman, as I think he will outdo him cash gen wise across the season, and it's more about getting cash gen out of those guys, and I think there's more chance of Buderick, especially if we know that his average is if he gets 100 in the first game, that Buderick will basically be already in negative break even territory, that he'll do better than Heath Chapman cash gen wise. To have a known big score early is a lot better than to be guessing for Heath Chapman. Jake Lever, no thank you. Ethan Hughes, I think no thank you at the moment. Josh Goda could get that role, but I think McKercher is going to more so get that role. So it will be interesting if he's the second distributor, but I don't really expect him to be. And I expect him to sort of be the same sort of score anyway, because Harry Shearer was there the year before in last year. Pat, no. Colin, no. Barras, no. Kennedy, no. Vandermeer, there's no one here really that I'm looking too much and thinking they're going to be potentially someone. D'Ambrosio is another guy we should probably look at a little bit, just because he's had 8 games at 42, I want to say. Year before that went 55 through 7. And if we look at his VFL form, had a 22, but if you discount that, I don't know if he was injured or something in that. In the VFL, he's gone 88, 107, 76. So in the VFL last year, he went at 86, which is a lot better. And if you actually discount when he was sub, because he was sub for a hell of a lot of games in the AFL, if you actually take out all those non-sub games, he averages 67 through 3, which being priced at, what's he priced at? Around about 52 or so. 51.5 I would say is probably the price range that he's around about. 51.7 I think he's priced at. He could easily outdo that, so that is definitely a watch as well at 467k, but I'd be more inclined to look at the likes of and he's another one that's been talked about on the wing for Hawthorn, to add that to make that 6. So he's another guy that I'd look at, but I'd rather Buderick, who's gotten a much more fancy relevant role in the distribution role at Gold Coast, rather than D'Ambrosio potentially on the wing at Hawthorn, but potentially also out of the side. Keith, no. Burgoyne, no. Just looking through here for anyone. Luke Nankervis is interesting, a little bit discounted, but he'd have to go sort of 80 or so to be any sort of 75, 80, and I don't know if he can necessarily do that. But I do believe he's got a heavily one of the games he played, he did not really do anything on it. No, he had 4. I thought he had a sub game, but in the sample, he is knocking on the door. What's he averaging now? If we look at this quickly, look at the sample this year, he is averaging, there we go, that's all the games, 79.5. So I don't think he'll do that at AFL level, take 5 or so off that. 74 could be interesting up there, but I don't think so at 457k. Frampton, Joel Jeffries, we'll talk about in the forward one. Drea, no. Farah, no one here really. And then you go down to Zach Williams and priced at 442k, which is roughly 49 or so k. He's basically priced at 49. I like to look at that just because he could go 80, 85, 90. He could go anywhere, and all you really need from him at 49 is about 75. And to be, what are we saying, around 10k cheaper than a lot of these guys. It'll be interesting to see with Zach Williams, but 442k will be interesting, and I think he is definitely one that is needed in a lot of sides just for cash gen reasons, and hopefully he gets averages 80 or so, gets through the first 7 or 8 weeks, and we can use a rookie to get him up to a premium. Andrews no, Sincotta no. There's no one else here really that I'm necessarily looking at and thinking they're going to be standouts. And we're already... Sam Banks could be interesting, one that I've heard some things about, but would need a good round 0 score to justify any selection there priced at 411k. And then we go down into the 300s, and there is basically no one here. Just looking at it quickly, there's no one here till we get down to Nick Caulfield, 358k. If he gets a spot in the Bulldogs lineup, priced at 40, could see him easily going 65-70, given Bulldogs are a kick mark type of side. 65-70 is plus 25, and he could be one that you sort of almost combine with Zach Williams in itself, or potentially also just go up with a rookie in around that round 10 or so range. Or if he does get dropped or injured or anything like that, just go up to a primo there around that 800 to 900k range. And there's that. Cordy Ralph-Smith. And I don't think there's anyone that I'm really looking at outside of that. And then you've got Marty Hall, who we will talk about in the rookies, as that is sort of the rookie price anyway. So that is the video, 36 minutes. I decided to speed it up a little bit just because I realized the time was getting a little bit away from me. But that is the video, and I'll see you guys in the next mid-price of madness, which is the midfielder edition, which will probably go for a long time, as it is the midfield. They take a lot of players run through there, etc. But I'll try and hopefully get non-DPPs in the midfield for you guys. But anyway, that is the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.